Good morning.
Good morning.
I noticed that we're a little sparse in the room.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Got it. We're being recorded. How many people do we have out in Zoom land, Mr. Georges?
Well, I was just looking,
Or should I be asking our treasurer?
just 4 right now.
4? Okay.
Well, don't count the,
Okay. That's not bad for June. Big reminder, we don't meet in July and August. We do not physically meet in July and August. If you come here, we will not be here in July and August. Okay, George is writing it down. Both Georges are writing it down. Okay, good. Then I know I communicated clearly. We're going to play a little loose with the agenda today. Since the presentation really is all news items, I'm going to keep the news section relatively short. So let's do the first thing. Do we have any new visitors or guests today? No, we do not. Okay. So we don't have to do the welcome. Does anybody have a news item that is not related to the Worldwide Developer Conference that they want to share? Yes, Shauna.
FileMaker Pro is now available for the, or not FileMaker Pro. They released something for the iPad.
Final Cut Pro.
Final Cut, thank you. Final Cut Pro
Yes.
now available for the iPad.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other news items that are going on once, twice? Bum, 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 bum. How's there? Yes, Greg.
How new does your iPad have to be to download down?
If you're running iOS 16, you can do it.
Good.
Okay. So that's it. So I'm going to say we're done with news. HomeKit Minute.
Okay. Well, I talked about this device last year sometime. Have you guys sharing on the?
Yeah, you can.
So,
Here, I'll switch.
okay. This is the Eve Aqua. If you go on their website or on Amazon, it's about $150. And you go, wow, that's pretty expensive. Yeah, for a HomeKit device it is, but it does a really good job. It's basically a Wi-Fi connected valve for your hose connection on the house. So I was going to go through I'll pass this around and you can take a look at
Your
it.
presentation on your phone.
I was going to do my phone.
Okay. It's a standard deal.
Okay. So what it allows you to do is have your outdoor hose connection connected, and you can do scheduled watering, or you can just tell it to start watering whenever you want to. Or you could have it set up, last month I talked about the Eve motion detector. You could have it linked to the motion detector. Let's say the deers are nibbling on your roses, and you could have a sprinkler set up with the motion detector that once it detects a motion by your fence posts or whatever, since the Eve motion detector is battery operated, it could sit outside, but as long as it's connected to Wi-Fi to your system, it could control the Eve Aqua device, which so they could, if it saw motion, say a dumpster panda was getting in your garbage or something, you could have it start your sprinkler system for 5 minutes and scare them off. But so it shows up in your HomeKit as just a simple on-off. So you could just start it. This is it's actually connected to sprinkler at home in my front yard, and then, oops, I forgot to water the yard this morning. So, I'll just start it here. And, because it's Wi-Fi connected and I'm a remote, it might take a few minutes here. There it goes. So it's, if you look at the Eve app, oops, like here. So if you look at the Eve app and you open the Eve app, there's a lot more information that you can see about it. You can schedule it, you can set a default duration. In this case, it's set for an hour. So the fact that I just started the sprinkler at home, it'll go for an hour and stop. And I had, a couple of weeks ago, I had a sprinkler going in the backyard, which didn't have the aqua attached to it, and I forgot about starting it up, so it ran all night. So, it could save you a fair amount of money if you're, forgetful like me. But like I said, it's about $150. You could have that linked to a manifold of other, you could have multiple hoses that you could then have set up. There's lots of different configurations, but it's a fairly reliable device, and I highly recommend it. It's got built-in 2 AA batteries, so it usually lasts an entire summer, so you shouldn't have to worry about it running out of batteries or anything. So, any questions about it? And
You can leave it outside all the time.
you don't want to leave it outside through the winter because the water inside will freeze and blow it. It's just a plastic valve, so that it will expand and blow out you ruin your device. Yeah.
If you have some old fittings and you have them with the faucet,
Well,
it's a little bit drip every once in a while.
While it connects to the hose bib, the valve on it will keep any water from actually getting out of the device.
Okay.
I mean, if your leak is before the connection, if you're leaking at the start of the hose bib, that it won't cure it. But if it's just a bad washer or something that keeps dripping, then yeah, it'll keep water from running out of the box until you tell it to start. So, any other questions? All right, hearing none, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? We'll just back. Okay. Too many remotes. Just they quit. And I have no idea why iTunes is trying to launch. Okay, so that was the HomeKit Minute. Next thing is freebies and wanted for sale. Do we have any items that are free? We've got some on the table over there.
Yeah, the
We've got
weather station. The weather station's
station.
back, as well as the previous generation of the Chamberlain MyQ. And then I brought with me a waterproof patch case. This is not Home Depot, but yeah, Harbor Freight's version of Pelican cases. So it's waterproof and it's padded. They normally sell this size for about $30, so I'm looking for 20.
Okay.
So.
Okay, anybody else have any items that they're selling?
Remember, we have on the Discord server a area that you can list that stuff.
This is correct.
Okay,
Are you on the Discord server?
I'm on Discord, but
Okay, are you on the TMG Discord server?
not yet.
Okay, we will send you a link. You will get on the Discord server. You'll see there's an area that says for sale and wanted. You will post your stuff there. Okay?
And that's my invitation only, I think.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You should have gotten it.
It'll be in a
Yeah,
post
so
email,
if
yeah.
if you send it out, I probably got it, but I just haven't.
Okay. Okay, I'm putting you on the list. So
The naughty list?
No, I don't have naughty lists, not with this crowd. I have reminder lists. What I've learned is if you have something like a Discord server or a network attached storage device and people don't use it, then you're not getting the value out of it. And so I want people to get value out of it since the club has spent money to set these things up. Okay, Discord invite.
Can you put Mark Schaefer on your list as well?
If you get the post TMG meeting
Is it every-
email, it'll be in this one.
Okay,
It was in the last one.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, and you're gonna do what you did last month, same thing? Okay, cool. All right, so we know how many people read the after meeting notes. Yeah, all right, well, you know, we do what we can.
I can lead that horse to the water, but
Well, the metaphor for a user group is that of a fountain. We're spouting all of this water, that's the information. It's up for you to cup your hands and grab what you want and decide whether it's something you need to drink. Okay, next thing I'm gonna say is we're on to help desk. Help desk, anybody had any help desk issues this? Yes, George?
Mentioning Discord, what is the assessment on how that's working?
The Discord server is working tickety-boo. It's,
Well, I'm on it, and I know that, but I'm just wondering what the feelings are as to the utility of it. Is it being used? How well is it being used?
I have there's two things I'm doing over the summer. One is I'm going to learn how to administer it appropriately. And second, learn how to create threads in the help desk area so I can start putting up a question and then have where people can do responses to it, and then eventually have a recap of it. So it'll be like the whiteboard, help desk whiteboard I used to have at the newspaper, where you could look up what a problem was and how it was resolved in the past.
There was some discussion a while back about, I don't know how it was called, I think it was tech notes, lessons learned, things that...
This is the same vein.
Okay.
Okay? But the thing is, case in point. All right, I had one of the members ask me a couple days ago, who's best at troubleshooting help desk problems? Is it you, or is it Chuck, or is it Mark Georges, or is it Bill Howe? And I said, well, we're all fairly adept at doing this stuff, but it's usually a collaborative effort. And I reminded him about last month's meeting where somebody had a question about how do I clear the cache in Safari? Okay. And it turned out one person would say, okay, Safari is frozen because there's some scareware on the screen. This person said you do this, then this person added, oh, and you also need to do this, and then another person said this, and then you combine that together and you've got a procedure list. What to do when you have scareware and your Safari web browser is frozen. Okay. Well, that's the way most help desk issues are. Nobody has a complete 100% best practice on how to fix something. Somebody else out there has some little tweak that you can add to what you're already doing. And the idea behind the Discord server is going to be to get more people coming in, keeping in mind Sturgeon's theorem, which is 85% of everything is crap. So 85% of the responses are going to be not helpful. But the 15 that are helpful, we'll take those and finally distill it and then put it in the help desk area as a resolve. And this is not going to be for weighty things like, well, how do I set up a Proxmox server, or how do I rack, things in a cabinet. It's going to be stuff that real people have asked, like, how do I rename my hard drive on my computer? It was saying Macintosh HD, and now it's just got a bunch of random letters. Well, how do you rename something like that? And the answer to that would be that you take your pointing device, you click on the icon for that device, you press your return key, that unlocks the name field for the hard drive, and then you can type in what you want it to be called. and then you press return at the end to log in. So, but that's the basic idea. So you don't have to ask the question over and over again. You can look and see, oh, okay, what's already up there? Hey, yeah, that's the question I was going to ask. And there's already a resolve on it.
And there's nothing like that right now on the.
Not right now. Okay, this is going to be user grown. That's right. Okay, and I'm dangling it out there as a carrot to convince people to come onto the Discord server, the TMG Discord server, ignore all the cartoon characters and animations, and look at how it can be a communication tool for you and a sharing tool. Something that makes your lives better. Okay? Did I do okay on that one?
Yes.
Yes, John.
If you start to get a bunch of stuff on the Discord server, and now you want to search to see if something's on there, how do you do that?
I don't know, and that's why I've got stuff to learn, how we can compare this stuff out. In some cases, what I'm thinking about is eventually we may do what's called a FAQ, frequently asked questions, but I wouldn't host that on the Discord server. I would host that on the club's internet accessible network hard drive, where we can store that kind of stuff up there.
Once you log in, there's a little box up at the top where you can basically type in a search.
Okay, so there-
It'll search whatever section that you're logged into.
Okay, so there's already a search field set up for it. Okay, but there's nothing to search for yet.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So we're in the chicken and the egg. And as I said last month, this is either going to be, oh, well, we put up a Discord server, but nobody came, nobody used it, or it's going to become one of the primary ways that we communicate to the members. And I'm leaning more towards it's going to become a real tool for the members. And hopefully something that'll draw in younger people too.
Bill's got it, Bill.
Yes, what have we got? Bill Howe.
Yeah, in there, do you know how to change the way they're listed from newest at the top instead of oldest at the top?
No, I don't. But I have someone here who might know. Aaron, do you know how to do that?
No, I'm not as familiar enough with the minutiae there either, but we can certainly find out.
Okay. Do you want me to send you an electronic copy of Discord servers for dummies that I'm working my way? I am not being dismissive. I read books like blah, blah, blah for dummies and whatever it is, yeah, real simple and quick for idiots. I read those because I learned stuff. Most of the people in the room know that if you've lived and survived long enough, it isn't so much what you know that bites you. No, actually it is what you know that bites you because it doesn't apply anymore. It's what you don't know that's going to bite you. So you need to expand that area of expertise. Everybody knows my theory of knowledge, right? My metaphor for that? You start out, you got a balloon. That's what you know. You're 12 years old, 10 years old, the balloon's kind of small, but the boundary between what you know and what you don't know, the perimeter of the balloon is pretty small, so you know when you know something, and you don't know if you don't know something, because there isn't that much in terms of your perceptual horizon that you're encountered yet. As you get older, as you survive more, as you learn more, your balloon of knowledge gets bigger, and the boundary between what you know and what you don't know gets bigger, because now you know more things you don't know. Okay. Well, I don't let that bother me. I just keep expanding the balloon. And then I focus on the core stuff, because that's usually the stuff that lets me control things in my life that are controllable, as opposed to tenuous stuff that's out there where I really don't have control over it anyway. Okay. So anyway, moving right along. Ms. Toller, I'm going to suggest we do the raffle at this point, since nobody seems to have a help desk question. So how many people have we got?
I'm quite ready. I'm having some snappers.
Speak up, please.
I'm having snappers.
Bill, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Recently, I was using a VPN, and then something happened. It was on the phone, and Safari would not connect to anything. Was I doing something wrong? Finally, I figured out, just get rid of the VPN and, or disconnect from it,
Okay.
and everything straightened out.
What happens with a virtual private network, so you're on a phone, you're using a phone, iPhone. Are you on cellular or Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi.
You're on Wi-Fi. Okay. So with a VPN, virtual private network, what happens is the phone is talking directly through a tunnel, a VPN tunnel, to some server that's out on the internet. Okay? Now, there are websites that will not let you connect if you're on a VPN. There are websites that will not let you connect if the VPN server is in a country other than your country. There are also VPNs that are free that have very little resources to run them, and they're glitchy as all get out. So, pick any of the group.
Yeah,
Now, do you know, was it a commercial VPN you were
Oh, yeah,
using?
yeah, it's
Nordic?
it is, Proton VPN.
Proton.
That's a good one.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
And, and I tried multiple
Okay.
websites to go to.
Okay.
So I don't know if,
It could be something as simple as, were you on a
I was at
public
the,
Wi-Fi?
I was at the Lebanon YMCA.
Lebanon
Oh, then
YMCA.
that's it. They don't have the ports open.
Yeah.
So VPN is, as he said, a tunnel, but you can also think of that in other terms such as skullduggery, shenanigans, etc. All internet traffic, everything that goes on the internet is a packet of information, and in that packet of information is a port, which is a human conception of where it goes. So the thing that receives it knows kind of what the nature of it is. So all internet web traffic is port 80 if it's insecure, stuff like that. So there's these numbers that indicate kind of the purpose of it, right? It is very easy to shut traffic down based on ports, because you just literally say, if traffic on this port gets shut down. Since you're at the Lebanon Public Library, it is almost 100% sure that they shut down the point-to-point tunneling protocol port, which is what VPN uses, because they didn't want people going in to the library, getting on VPN, and then losing control of the narrative of who's doing what at the library. Because the whole point of VPN is to create a tunnel that's secure. That's why it was designed, but the humans always evolve other purposes for things, and so originally it was, let's make this secure so you can work. Now it's, no one can see inside this, so you can do naughty things or pirate things or get Netflix in India you're not supposed to have or whatever. So since it was at the library, there's a very strong case that as a matter of institutional control, they block the ports that it needs to function.
Because remember, if it's a tunnel, traffic can go both ways. It has to if you're doing stuff. So if you're inside their firewall and you're trying to VPN out, that means people coming in through that VPN are coming inside their firewall.
So on a public Wi-Fi, I was trying to protect myself, but
Yeah.
they're saying, no.
Well, they don't want some kid. A kid could go get any of these VPNs, could get on the library computer, and they could do anything they wanted, and they can't control, they have no institutional control over their computers at that point.
Usually the cases where I say you want to be using VPN would be Wi-Fi, such as you're at a Mickey D's or you're at a Gold Star or a Skyline. You know, you're at a restaurant. You're at Harbor Freight. You're at Lowe's. You're at Home Depot. If you're going to be doing something, for God knows why, you suddenly decide you need to manipulate your stock portfolio. Okay, so you go, okay, I'm going to use VPN to do this. That would be a case where you would want to use a VPN to maintain privacy of the connection.
It's just that they have to allow the traffic through, and it's relatively easy for them to turn the spigot off.
Yeah.
I think the library is a good place to do it too.
Well, when I think of library, I go, oh, it's a government institution. They are going to secure their physical and digital premises. Okay, so the VPN isn't necessarily going to work there.
Now I know.
Okay. And then the analogy I use for ports is I think of the San Francisco Bay Bridge, and the cables that handle that load, and they're made out of multiple strands. So in my head, when I think of the internet, I think of one of those stranded cables with literally thousands of individual wires that are woven together, and each one of those wires is a port that you can send information on.
You used to use the analogy of the sewer system.
Well, that's what I use for VPN. I say, imagine if you will, you have a VPN server which is a commode, and you have a commode in your house, and you want to send something from your house to that other house, and you're going to do it through the sewer system. Okay. Now, you want to protect that thing that you're sending through. You don't want it to be soiled. So you would have a VPN, think of it like a plastic tube that's going into the commode, through the sewer system, and coming out at the other end, and you remove the caps from the end, and now you have a secure pipeline, tunnel, to move things back and forth without them being soiled by the internet, the sewer system. So, I don't know. That one time, I've got to find a new analogy, because people just start giving me this look like, okay. Again, how many people have we got?
24.
24. Okay, I'm putting in the numbers. 24. We're going to do our raffle. Okay, so I'm officially calling us all back to order. Okay, so the presentation today is about the things that were announced at Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference that's running this week and next week out in California. First, a disclaimer. With the exception of the hardware that they announced, the other things that they announced are coming in the fall or coming next year. In other words, they don't actually exist yet other than in a beta format. And features they may talk about in the developer conference may not actually be in the product when it's released. We saw that happen with HomeKit. We saw it happen with some other things in the past. So that's the first thing, okay? Remember, this is stuff that they're got coming, but it's not here yet. The second disclaimer, and this one's very important, I am not here to sell you stuff. Okay, so when I look at these things, I tend to be, I revert to my burned out newspaper guy mode. Cynical as can be, yeah, show me, prove it. How does this improve my life? So if I don't seem very enthusiastic about these various things, it's because they're not the greatest thing since sliced bread until they're actually released and I've used it and I can give you an honest opinion about it. Okay. The last disclaimer is that the most important thing that happened at the Worldwide Developer Conference was the stuff they didn't say. 2 words that they didn't say. Artificial intelligence. They did not mention it at all. And there were quite a few people in legacy media, mass media, that comment about, oh, Apple is falling behind. They're not into AI. They're not into this. They're not into that. So when that came out, I went, that doesn't sound like Apple. I mean, they tend to be secretive about what they're doing, but they tend to be on top of stuff. So I did a little bit of research. So about 2 years ago, when Apple was getting into their Apple Silicon, doing their own chips and all that, there was a meeting between Tim Cook and Jensen from NVIDIA. And everybody thought it was about graphics cards. Okay. Now, you may not know, but the original Apple Silicon chips, those were the ones that were in the phones and in the other mobile devices, the pads and that, didn't have Core ML in it. ML, those 2 little initials stand for machine learning. Okay. The other thing that most people don't realize is that all of those artificial intelligence chips that NVIDIA is pumping out are based on the ARM processor structure. Apple Silicon is based on an ARM silicon processor. There's another thing, if you look at like a blow-up of one of these Apple Silicon chips, and they've got these various things, there's Core ML over here, and then there's something called neural networks. Hey, that sounds like it's artificial intelligence stuff. Okay, so that got me thinking, okay, they're doing some stuff. Well, who have they got doing it? So about 2 months after that meeting between Tim Cook and Jensen from NVIDIA, Apple bought 50 small companies, okay, that were doing work on a contractor basis for Google on artificial intelligence, but they were getting frustrated because it didn't look like Google was going to ever release a product. You know, they're doing stuff, but you know, nothing's coming out. Then I discovered there's a guy by the name of John G. Andrea. He used to work for Apple, and he was in iPhone development. And then, when Google was going to do their own phone, he jumped ships and went to work at Google and headed up their phone development. And then later, he was head of AI and search for Google. And then he went back to work for Apple, where he's now Senior Vice President of Machine Learning and Search. Okay, so it's not that Apple isn't doing stuff in artificial intelligence, it's just that they're keeping it on the down low, and they're calling it machine learning, because there's more than one kind of artificial intelligence. So with that as a backdrop, I would remind you that all of these Apple Silicon chips that are in these new hardware devices I'll be talking about have this whole section that are GPU, graphic processor units, that are built into the Apple Silicon. The stuff that Jensen over at NVIDIA, those chips, they're all based on GPU architectures. So it's like Apple's already got this stuff sort of baked into their chips now. So it's going to be more of a programming issue than a hardware issue with them. Okay, so with that said, let's look and see what got released at Worldwide Developer Conference 2023. And I want to just a second here. I need to pull some stuff out of the way so I can see my screen here. I've got a bunch of stuff going on with the Zoom. Okay, so you've got up here in front of you, this is pretty much what got released all in one picture. So you're seeing a Mac Studio next to a Mac Pro, or as I call them, Chunky and Cheese Grater. And then you've got over on the side, that's supposed to be a MacBook Air. And then we've got iOS 17, watchOS 10, and iPad OS 17. So they released hardware and then they announced software.
Hey, you forgot the goggles.
Oh, I'm not going to talk about those yet.
Well, they're in the picture.
Okay. All right, so anyway, this is where I do just a quick summary. So, the new computers that were released. A 15-inch MacBook Air with the M2 processor, and that's starting at $1299. A Mac Studio, I'm sorry Mark Georges, your Mac Studio is now obsolete, it's old stuff. But those Mac Studios have M2 Max, so that's a kind of Apple processor, and they have the M2 Ultra. You know, you can put either one in, starting at $2,000. And then a Mac Pro with M2 Ultra starting at $7,000. I'm just going to ignore the $999. Okay. And then this other thing called Vision Pro, and we'll talk more about that a little bit at the end. That's for $3,500. And then in terms of operating systems, iPhone, for the iPhone, iOS 17. For the iPad, iPad OS 17. For the Macs, Mac OS Sonoma. I keep hoping they will do Rancho Cucamonga, but they just won't do it. It's a city in California. It's viable. Okay. A new operating system for the Watch. That would be watchOS 10. And then for the Apple TV, tvOS 19. And then this other thing called Vision OS. And this last one is a brand new operating system. And we'll talk a little bit about that at the very end. Okay, so the MacBook Air, you know, it's a beautiful thing, 15-inch screen. Wow, okay. But Apple being Apple, you know, they're going to do some other stuff when they upgrade a machine like that. So the 15-inch MacBook Air is starting at $1,300, but they cut the price of the 13-inch MacBook Air, which is powered by the M2 chip, to $1,200. And then they still have the original M1 MacBook Air at $999. Okay, so they're keeping that so that you've got the really light portable laptop, 3 different versions. Good, better, best, or low, medium, high, however you want to look at it. Then they released 2 new machines, as I said, Chunky and Cheese Grater, as I call them. So Mac Studio now comes with M2 Max and M2 Ultra Apple Silicon. The M2 Max is 50% faster than the previous Mac Studio. And Mac Studio with M2 Ultra has twice the performance of M2 Max and 3 times faster than Mac Studio with M1 Ultra. And the new Mac Studio is available to order now, and it starts at $2,000.
25 words or less.
Sure.
Why is it called Studio? What are the features that are unique to other computers? I'm not familiar with it.
With Apple Silicon, your memory and the number of cores that are for processing and the number of graphic cores, it's all in the one chip. So when they exponentially add stuff on, they give it a new name. So the M2 Max is a significantly upgraded chip over the M2. And the M2 Ultra is 2 M2 Maxes that are combined together, if you will, in one chip.
So the term Studio has no functionality significance.
Studio.
Not used differently than
Studio is
Okay.
like a Mac Mini on steroids.
Okay,
just a different
Studio.
name.
It's what they call the thing in the
Okay.
middle now.
This is a Mac Pro from the front. I call it a cheese grater because to me it looks like a cheese grater. That's a Mac Studio. That's what was announced 8 months ago, 9 months ago. It was a new form factor. It's twice the height of a Mac Mini, and these things really boogie, and they have all these ports that they put on the front. What they were looking for was a machine that was aimed for the video creators, the people that are doing YouTube, the people that record meetings and then put it up on YouTube. And Mark George's has one, and it's an impressive piece of iron.
Okay, that ties it to the functionality.
Well, that and they've priced the Mac Pro at such a level that only extremely serious people or people that need a lot of processing power are at $7,000. You're not going to go out and buy a Mac Pro.
And they took the iMac Pro basically out of the lineup. Okay, so they needed something to fill that niche.
Think of it like a transmission. The Mini is first gear, and you don't need to leave first gear if you're just not going anywhere, right? The Mini does a lot, it's pretty powerful. And then suddenly you're like, I want to edit 2 8K video streams. You're now a video creator. Well, you need a little more oomph to do that, so we make the box bigger to fit more stuff in it to cool it down. We call that Studio because you're a creator.
Right.
But now you're like, I want to do things like building these machine language models, or I want to do these things like really bringing in professional things. So we make the box even bigger, and that's called Pro. So it's like a transmission going up gears.
And I would use a different analogy. We're going to hit the battling metaphors.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Pro also
The
has,
Mac Mini is the Chinese electric truck that you use to move stuff around in the alleyway. This is a Dodge Ram or Ford 150. Ford 150.
Yeah.
Okay, it can move a lot of stuff. This is like a Peterbilt. Okay. Anyway.
the Pro has got PCI slots. You can insert cards in it, additional cards. The Studio does not, although you can expand it through the Thunderbolt ports.
Yes. Okay, the Mac Pro previously had Intel Xeon processors in it. So the only reason that I'm interested in the Mac Pro at this point is that it's the last of the Intel devices that Apple was selling. Now it's got M2 Ultra in it. It's got, let's see, you'll find the Mac 2 Ultra chip in. These things start at $7,000. They come in the stand. They also come, turn it sideways, rack mounts.
Now, if you want wheels on it, that's another $400.
Yeah. The stand for the monitor for this is $1,000. Okay, so in terms of video production, the people that would be using this are the ones that are doing video productions for Apple TV, or for Paramount, or for, help me out here, streaming services, Netflix. Yeah, you know, all of those folks, they're commercial productions, and you need to be processing a lot of data, and you need to be doing it relatively quickly. Okay. They've got 8 built-in Thunderbolt ports, a 24-core CPU, up to 192 gigabytes of memory in this thing, and up to a 76-core GPU. And remember, GPUs can be used for AI stuff, so I could see using a Mac Pro in a rack with other Mac Pros doing something like powering Siri. I could see that. And the reason why it's important in my mind is it signals the end of the Intel transition. Apple has made the move completely now from using Intel processors to using Apple Silicon. They don't sell anything anymore that's got Intel in it. So you might think about that if you own Intel stuff. They've got some hard thinking to be doing. So this means Apple no longer markets any device powered by Intel. The iPads, no Intel. The iMacs, no Intel. The Studios, no Intel. The Mac Minis, no Intel. The Mac Pros, no Intel. The MacBook Pros, no Intel. MacBook Airs, no Intel. What did I miss, if anything? Do we still have the MacBooks? MacBook is gone again? Yeah, okay.
The 12-inch was the last one with that number.
So that means Apple is designing their own chips. They are much more in control of their future. So that's all good stuff. The other thing that I'll just throw in is that Apple, starting at the beginning of COVID, they started working with companies in Vietnam and India to have them manufacturing components for Apple. And that is just starting to come to fruition now. I'm not sure where they are with foundries, though, the people that actually make the chips, not design the chips, but actually make the chips. I think they're still primarily, there's some chip manufacture that's going on in Ireland, but the vast majority of it is still in Taiwan, and there's geopolitical issues with having all your eggs in one basket. Okay. All right, Greg.
They're supposed to be building a facility near Columbus, Ohio, for chips.
It takes a long time to build a foundry, and even longer to get it dialed in where you've got the quality production that you need to
So
have.
what is your prediction as to when it'll be?
I don't predict that kind of stuff.
You don't?
I've been wrong so long, so many times. Marcus Mullins.
I know TSMC over in Taiwan. I've got a friend who works in that industry.
Yeah.
He says for them, from the time they start breaking ground to the time they're dialed in, usually between 3 to 5 years.
TMSC is building one in the Southwest, but they're having trouble hiring people. There's been a lot of news stories about this week. There's a culture clash, and the one near Columbus is Intel, although when they build these, they tend to go to where the puck is going. So if you're at like 5 nanometer, you don't build a 5 nanometer new facility. You build like a 2 or 3 nanometer so that when it comes online, it sort of slides in there.
Yeah.
So it takes a while because you have to line it up with your process nodes. You don't want to build something that's already obsolete by the time you finish construction.
Yeah. Plus, there's this other company called NVIDIA, and they, during COVID, when there was some problems with supply chain, early in the game, Jensen Huang, having a senior
Everybody
writer,
just calls
couldn't
him
remember his
Jensen.
last name, Jensen Huang, who's from Taiwan originally. He went over there and said, hey, we've got these chips that we've been experimenting with, but we want to get them into commercial production. So they've been cranking out AI chips for Jensen Huang for the last 2 years. So that sucked up some of the excess capacity that was there. So the whole semiconductor industry, foundries, who makes the machines that let you make the chips, it's a very interesting ecosystem, but also very complicated. Right? There's only one company in the world that makes the machines that lets you make the chips, and that's AMSL, and they're
from Holland.
Are they in Switzerland?
Holland.
Holland, yeah. Okay, we all know about the Dutch. They are, problematic to begin with. Okay, with that said, moving right along, so that ends the hardware that they released that you can buy. So just to repeat, a MacBook Air 15-inch, 2 different flavors, new flavors of Mac Studios, a Mac Pro, okay? So that's a pretty good chunk of stuff to release in the thing. Worldwide Developer Conference this year, it was the longest keynote I've ever seen. It was more than 2 hours, and it was packed with stuff. So now we're going to move on to some of the other stuff here, the iOS 17 and that. So in the presentation, which you end up with a copy of, each of these screenshots for the operating systems, it basically has all the new features that they're putting in. I'm not going to go through the details of this because it doesn't exist yet for me to try except in beta form. So I'm just going to say, they got some really cool stuff. Automatic check-ins, name drop, where you can send your contact information by bumping phones. A thing called standby, where your watch's face is off, your iPhone faces on all the time, and it can be sitting on the sideboard charging and still be giving you information, sort of like a mini dashboard of your life. But I'm not going to go into any of the details of that. I'll just walk through. New phone and FaceTime features, new message features, new check-in feature, new AirDrop features. Autocorrect now leverages transformer language models to improve prediction. That's geek speak for generative AI, ChatGPT, if you will, except instead of typing it, you're talking to it. Improved and more accurate dictation, oh, excuse me, you would be typing, it's autocorrect. Improved and more accurate dictation, that's ChatGPT. New journaling features, that's an actual app. So if you're into writing a journal, you want to keep a record of your life, it's an app just for that. I've always been more of a private person, and I'd be embarrassed for you to see how I actually spend my time, how I fritter it away. A new standby feature was that thing where it's charging and it's on the same. And then last but not least, iOS 17 supports the iPhone XS and newer. They're dropping support for the iPhone X, and it's coming in the fall. iOS 17. The other thing they went through was iPad OS 17. So this is for the iPads. Remember, they've got separate operating systems, they got separate names, they got separate features. And they've got a whole bunch of stuff that they're putting into that. Offline maps is a good one, so you don't have an internet connection, but you can still use it to find stuff on a map. Okay. Live stickers and messages. So, in text, customizable lock screen with widgets, new wallpapers, new font and color options, and more stuff. Live activities are now available on the iPad via the login screen. Interactive widgets, improvements to PDF editing, thanks to machine learning, and I didn't do my spacing properly. The health app will now be on the iPad. So if you already are using the health app on your iPhone, it's now going to be on the iPad. Stage Manager has been updated, and you'll be able to add more cameras to your iPad to be doing stuff. And new FaceTime video calling effects. And again, oh yeah, compatibility. iPad 6th generation and later. iPad mini 5th generation and later. iPad Air 3rd generation and later. The 13-inch iPad Pro 2nd generation and later. The 11-inch iPad Pro and the 11-inch iPad Pro 1st generation and later. So all that stuff, iPad 17 will work on it, and it's coming later this year. So with the iPad OS, they didn't even promise in the fall, they just said later this year. And then the one that I'm usually more concerned about, and that is the new release of Mac OS for the traditional computers. And it's called Sonoma. One of the things that they say they're going to do is if you have Siri activated on your traditional computer, you won't have to say, "Hey Siri," to get it to respond to you. You'll just be able to say, "Siri," and it will respond to you.
What happens if you say you're serious?
Well, I can answer that question real quick.
And we have a room full of devices going on
If you'll notice he mentioned that they were changing the autocorrect to be transformer-based and other things. Same thing here. Because Siri's inaugural phrase is going to be passed through this is a complete guess, but it's an educated guess. They're going to pass that sentence through a transformer, and because of that, it can understand context. One of the things, and you can argue about whether they reason or not, I think they do kind of, but one of the things that transformers like ChatGPT can do is a form of reason, and they can discern context. So if you say, "Are you serious?" it won't trigger because it will actually pass it through a context engine and go, "That's clearly not a request for a command." Whereas Prior to that, it wasn't transformer-based, it was based on what was called a command and control, which is just, it just takes that sentence and goes, and then runs it through. So that's why they had to have the Hey series, because it did not have the sort of second grader brains that an LLM has, and that's why.
Voice control on Apple
Voice is a case.
computers is not a new thing. Back in the late 1980s, early 1990s, when I was doing stuff with computer-aided rehabilitation services, we were setting up voice actuation commands on Macs running Mac OS 7 and 8 and 9. And I can remember testing some of this stuff, and it was in my office, and I had a TV on, and it was a cop show. And the cop show, the dialogue was, "Stop!" And every process on my computer finished. Because it thought the TV show was talking to it. And that's when I learned, okay, you need to have a trigger phrase for this. And that was something you could turn on and you could modify, you could edit. You could tell the computer back then what the trigger phrase would be. So I look at this stuff and I go, okay, they've been doing it all those years, but the quality that you get now, the way I would put it is, if there's two things that Apple is actually selling to their customers, it's quality and trust. Trust that they're only going to release something when it actually adds quality to your life, and that you can trust on it, you can rely on it, it's going to work. And quality meaning that it's polished. It's not a first-time effort. Trust and quality. Mac OS Sonoma, very much more of a polished product than Ventura, the current operating system.
But it's not available yet, right, to me?
It's, you can do it in beta, but it's actually going to be available in the fall. So it'll become available when they do their back to school thing. There's going to be another keynote of back to school, and at that point, the machines that are being sold in that are going to have Sonoma on them. And let's see. So anyway, some of the things in Sonoma, interactive widgets. I've seen, widgets come and widgets go. I can remember widgets back in, was it Windows ME? I'm trying to remember when widgets
It was
first
Vista.
appeared in the Microsoft.
Well, they started on Mac side with Kaleidoscope, wasn't that what it was called? Anyway.
Dashboard. You had
Dashboard.
Dashboard.
I thought Dashboard ripped off a private thing called Kaleidoscope. They Sherlock did. But
Yeah, so we're talking Mac OS 7,
we're talking
Mac
a long time
OS
ago.
8.
But yeah, it was Vista that had the widgets. We used to, the company that we looked at we actually had a product that had widgets that were like third party. It didn't ever take off.
I can remember troubleshooting Microsoft Vista where what was throttling down the machine where it couldn't process properly, it was a server, was that they had a weather widget running. And it was going out, constantly looking for what's the current weather at all these things. Anyway.
That's funny.
Memory leaks, bad programming. Of course, we live in the future now, so we don't have to worry about this.
Bill,
Yes?
I'm actually asking a question that most of the people in here know, but what's the difference between a widget and some of the other stuff that's in your...
A widget is what we used to call a desk accessory. Okay. And desk accessories became dashboard apps, and then they grew up and they became the apps that are on our iPhones and our iPads.
Okay.
And now what they're doing is they're bringing them back to the traditional computers. All right, so a widget would be a very small program that does just one thing. It acts like a Rolodex for your contact list, or it displays a clock up in the corner. Or, I'm trying to think of other weather
Batteries.
things. You know, they're little, but it just does that. Okay, so it's a single thing, and it tends to be very small, doesn't use up a whole lot of CPU cycles, but they, bad programming, bad things happen.
So what makes it interactive? I mean, if you're.
Interactive widgets means that it'll be up on your lock screen and you can tap it and have it doing stuff. Or that you'll be able to talk to it and have it do stuff. Again, when these operating systems are actually released to the public, they're out of beta, we go over in club meetings in detail what all the features are, which ones are good, which ones are bad, what you need to turn off right away, what you need to turn on right away. The main thing that I saw was improvements to Safari, making it even more secure and even faster than it was. Safari is technically the fastest web browser available right now. So it's faster than Google Chrome, it's faster than Chromium, it's faster than Microsoft Edge, it's faster than Brave, it's faster than Opera, it's faster than Vivaldi. I'm trying to think of another operating system. What did I miss? Opera, it's definitely faster than Opera. And it's much more secure than any of those. Though Google Chrome and Edge are right up there in terms of security. Okay, you know, not having bad things come in through that HTML connection that you've
I
got.
also have DuckDuckGo in there.
It's search engines. It's search engines, that's a whole separate topic.
Okay.
That's a rabbit hole we won't go down today. And then the other thing, the eye candy, Apple TV style aerial screensavers. Well, I make my own screensavers for my computer, so that's not really a great feature, but some people really like them. And then they've significantly improved in macOS Sonoma gaming in the operating system, and they have some developer tools that will let you port Windows and Steam games to the Apple Silicon processor architecture. Okay, what's it compatible with? MacBook Pros from 2018 and later, MacBook Airs from 2018 and later, Mac Minis from 2018 and later, iMacs from 2019 and later, iMac Pros 2017 and later, Mac Studios, all models, Mac Pros 2019 and later. And it's going to be available in the fall. So macOS Sonoma, typically October when they're doing their back to school stuff, it'll be available, and we'll be doing a presentation on it in detail. Another thing that they released was watchOS 10. Well, let's say announced. I have to stop saying released. They announced. You know, they're telling you what they're going to do, but sometimes stuff doesn't actually get baked into the final product. With watchOS, a whole bunch of new watch faces and new features for watch faces, a whole bunch of new apps, new workout features, new health app features, and this stuff will work on the Apple Watch Series 4 and newer, and it's available in the fall. Okay, then they released TV, or excuse me, did it again? They announced tvOS 17. So they got a redesigned control center, support for VPNs, a FaceTime app for Apple TV, denser home screen layout. That means you can have more apps on the screen at a time. A new Find My Remote feature, but it's only for the Siri remote, the one that you can talk to. And then this is for 2015 Apple TVs and newer, and that's available in the fall. Okay, so that was all of the, what I call applesauce, all of the operating systems that they released. Okay, I can tell, yes, Bill Howe.
Did they mention anything about Apple CarPlay? Apple CarPlay, did they mention anything?
No, they didn't.
Because I've seen and read things that certain automobile manufacturers are going to drop using them and have their own, which they're going to charge you for.
Yeah. again, the auto manufacturers that are attempting to do that transition from internal combustion to electric, they're looking for money where they're picking up the cushions on the sofa looking for spare change, wherever they can pick up some money, because this stuff is expensive as can be to do, to make that whole new architecture of motors and vehicles. So anything that they can not spend to someone else, they'll do. I don't think they're thinking very far. I think they're going to find out that CarPlay is a better solution for them. But
Toyota tried to do that about 10 years ago.
yeah,
And they stopped doing it about 4 years ago because it just wasn't functional.
yeah. Especially since more and more of this stuff is going to be using some form of artificial intelligence, especially in terms of monitoring the electric vehicle and optimizing efficiency and doing those sorts of things, driving the car. I mean, you know,
Bill,
yeah.
there's something on the computer, I guess, on you, anyway, it's about car manufacturers dropping AM signals in favor of FM, which is gonna...
They just don't want to have to pay for it.
They're starting to backpedal on that.
Well, yeah, because the government came in, oh, wait, no, you can't do that because it's already baked in federal law.
That's right.
Because the Conelrad system, I don't think they call it Conelrad anymore. But that's all on the AM, and all of these states have radio stations that broadcast on the AM channel with traffic conditions.
Yeah.
So,
That
yeah,
was
but
part of the
again,
argument
it's,
I heard.
they're trying to not pay for something that they have to put in the car. The model that I see them using is, you're gonna have to pay for it, and it's gonna become an extra, and then it's only gonna work for the first 6 months, and then you gotta subscribe to it after that. Okay, and we'll see what happens there. Anyway, moving right along.
I thought I heard that the FCC permitted sub-channels for AM on FM. So if you had like WHIO, who has an AM and a...
Yeah, but they're talking about taking out a radio receiver that's an AM/FM
Right.
receiver.
But to get around that, they're allowing the AM station to broadcast on a sub-channel
Yeah.
of FM.
Yeah,
So
but the
you-
thing is, the car manufacturers want to take the radio completely out. They don't want to pay money to Cirrus, they don't want to have to put in a unit that they...
In addition, they're putting more burden on the customer or the
Yeah.
driver.
Yep, yep.
There's a certain portion of the population
Yep.
that's not going to be able to manage this.
Yeah. But again, you know, when you're doing transformation of an industry, it's expensive.
It used to be, you try to make it so it was easy for everybody to use, depending upon what their characteristics.
Okay, again, I would remind you, the two things that I think Apple sells to their customer is quality and trust. Now, think of two words that Toyota is selling,
Yeah.
or two words that Honda is selling, or two words that Ford is selling.
But I'm trying to make the point.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us got attracted to Apple early because it was the most convenient system to use.
Which I view as a quality issue.
Yeah, but the user interface
Mm-hmm.
decides how much of the capability you can extract and convert into an actual function. That's why these guys are going to run up against the wall.
Yeah. But, well, in any case, today's presentation is not about automobiles. Then there was one last, so you may have heard in mass media that Apple was releasing a new Apple Vision product. And, so I went through and looked to see what I could find in Apple catalogs from the past. This is an Apple Vision thing that they were sending out to dealers way back in the day. And you can tell how old it is because it's the multicolored apple. But the thing that they actually announced, but they did not do an in-person demo of, they just let people in the media try it later on, was this, the Vision Pro. Okay, so the first thing that I heard people say about this is, oh, it's another set of VR goggles. This is not a set of VR goggles. That's a standalone computer that you wear on your head and that you control with your fingers in your eyes. Okay. Let me say that again. This is not a set of VR goggles. This is a standalone computer, okay, that you look through so you can be seeing your room, and it's going to be projecting your spreadsheets, your various apps. It's got its own operating system. Okay? So let's, and I highly recommend, because this thing is so hard to describe, it's new. It's a new thing. And I don't have any metaphors to help me explain what this thing is. So I strongly recommend, if you have time, go out to the Apple website. They've got a short movie about how they see people using this, the Vision Pro. So let me just go through some of the stuff. Okay, so it's officially unveiled the Apple Vision Pro. Its new augmented reality computer. Okay, we're not talking about virtual reality. We're not talking about Zuckerberg and Metaverse. We're talking about augmenting your current reality. In other words, you're seeing your reality and then there's stuff laid on top of it. Okay?
Can I ask, I'm making
Sure.
an analog. There's a heads-up display. Maybe that's not the right term, for aircraft, for pilots. Is that kind of the same thing? You're looking out the cockpit?
Yeah,
seeing
except
the real
instead
world?
of the computer being in the avionics bay, it's sitting on the pilot's head.
Okay.
I mean, wow. I mean, just wow. Okay. The other wow is $3,500. Wow. Okay, so augmented reality computer you wear on your head starting at $3,500. Apple calls it spatial computing. I'm really having trouble trying to get my old brain to figure out what they mean by spatial computing. But I keep thinking about all of those large screen displays on the floor at Costco and at Sam's Club. And I'm going, why would I go for one of those when this thing has got the equivalent of a 4K TV for each of my eyeballs built into it, in terms of the density of the pixels? Okay, anyway, so Vision Pro is driven by your eyes, your hands, and your voice. You tap your fingers to select stuff, you flick to scroll. So it's being displayed to you with the Vision Pro. You've got it on. You're seeing screens as large as you want them to be.
360?
Pretty close. Not quite, but pretty close. You can have more than one app up, and as you turn your head, that app screen then is available to you. Again, remember, they didn't do a live demo of this. They just let selected members of the press try it. And I've worked with journalists, and if there's one thing that journalists don't know what to do, and that's ask the right questions. Okay? So a design goal of the Vision Pro is not being isolated. So it's got this feature that just sort of blew me out of the water. EyeSight displays your eyes and expressions through the outer display. So when somebody's looking at you and you have the Vision Pro on, Vision Pro recognizes there's somebody in the room, and it then displays on the Vision Pro your eyes through it and shows that person in your augmented reality. And if you're immersed in a thing, like you're watching a movie, those eyes go away. So somebody can tell if you're busy, you know, I'm working here, or whether they can get your attention or not. And then again, if someone is nearby, they're revealed through a pass-through in the field, the vision field, and the eyes reappear. So that they then get that feedback, oh, hey, I do have their attention. Okay, so for the married people in the audience, you could still be watching the football game, but if you do that little flip switch, you know, eyesight on at all times, spouse is going to think she has your complete attention. Vision Pro works with the Mac wirelessly, and Mac peripherals also work with the headset. Now that's one of these things, I don't know exactly what kind of peripherals they're talking about. Are they talking about Apple Pencil? Are they talking about keyboards? Are they talking about mice? Are they talking about iPads as a accessory? But here's just sort of a screenshot of what it would look like looking through this. So you've got your vision of your room is not impeded, and yet you can have all these different things up in your web browser or application. So again, this is one of these things I'm having trouble conceptualizing. Marcus.
Yeah, augmented reality is becoming a really big thing in professional venues, right? You have people with iPads, other types of tablets, where they're working on an aircraft engine, for example, and they can hold it up so where the camera is looking at the engine and it's projecting a picture of the engine on the display of the iPad, but it's overlaying it with all the technical details, right? Makes it so much easier for somebody who's maintaining equipment and stuff to do that. And now, of course, the problem with holding the iPad is you got to use one or two hands to hold the iPad while you're trying to work on something. With the goggles, I guess this was Google's idea, right, with their Google glasses that they had for a while that didn't really pan out, was the idea that you can basically augment what people are saying and overlay on whatever information you want. Not sure I get all the extra features about, you can display your eyes through the outside and everything, but the augmented reality is going to definitely be a big thing in the future.
Do you remember there was a little kerfuffle between this high-tech entrepreneur who had bought a company and Apple removed their advertising from him, and then there was a meeting of the minds and they came back? Okay, well that entrepreneur, Elon Musk, has a whole slew, a kennel of Boston Dynamics spots, the robot dogs that are used at SpaceX. And these things go out with the sensors and they check after a launch, before the launch, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, there's a video clip, all right? And it shows a SpaceX engineer doing meter readings on the pad, and he's got a pair of what look like Vision Pros on, and the dog is doing the sniffing of the air and testing the temperatures and all the other stuff. So I'm thinking that Mr. Cook might have sweetened the pot to get Mr. Musk to go away by throwing him a couple prototype Vision Pros. And the giveaway is that if you remember the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, and you've got the robot Gort, the side of this Vision Pro has got the sound bar area, and it reminds me of Gort, okay? And the SpaceX engineer, who happened to be a female, by the way, she's got that battery cord coming down from that, and I don't know of any vision devices other than Apple that have it coming down on the left side. Everybody else seems to come down on the right side. So, all right, so moving right along here, this is what the unit actually looks like. So this is the light shield. So that's so your eyes are not getting exterior light coming in. This is the unit that's got unbelievable number of sensors in it that are looking for people out there, and it's watching your eyes and it's watching your hands and listening to you. These are the sound modules. So this thing is like a home theater system that's strapped on your head. This is the battery pack. You get up to 2 hours plus battery life. And then this band in the back, this is knitted so that you're not going to get that rubber, snorkel mask feel on the back of your head. There's also another band that you can buy that comes over the top that would attach. This is not a light unit. It is a heavy unit.
Yes.
Okay. And we don't know exactly how heavy it is because the various people who tried it, members of the media, they got different units, and some were heavier and clunkier than others. Okay. Yes?
Yeah, I happened to hear one of those personalities who wore one, who was a female. She said that was the only deficit, was that it was heavy.
Yeah.
And so, we'll see what happens in the future, but for small people like me, if it's, it could be a deal breaker. I could wear it for half hour and then it's like, God.
So, in my head I go, okay, Vision Pro, it's a good first effort. But this is the company that took, I don't know how many of you have used Apple long enough to remember the first Mac laptop. The one that was coterminous with the Mac 2 and the Mac 2, okay.
The 100,
And that's
Macintosh Portable.
no, the one that had the scroll bar in the middle and it had the
It was a
carrying
luggable.
handle.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
called the Macintosh
So,
Portable.
Yeah, that was what, 32 pounds, 35 pounds? This is the company that took something as a starting point and ended up with a MacBook Air that you could slide into an envelope for business. I mean, wow. So I'm going to say if the engineers could do it to a MacBook, they're going to be able to get this thing eventually streamed down. Okay, now just to give you another idea of just how much is going on in here, this thing is powered by M2 silicon paired with a brand new R1 processor. So it's a dual processor handling all this stuff for here. The display uses micro LEDs, includes 23 million pixels in 2 different panels. So each panel's got 23 million pixels. So that's more pixels than a 4K TV per eye. Battery life up to 2 hours with external battery, unlimited if you've got it plugged in. Okay. Microsoft and Zoom apps are already optimized for Vision OS, so that means that the folks at Microsoft have been using this to do their stuff with Teams, and the people at Zoom have been using this. So they've already got that whole idea of the virtual meetings. And one of the things the Vision Pro will do is it'll generate an avatar that looks like you and put it into your virtual meeting. So you're wearing the goggles, but when you're in the meeting virtually, they don't see the goggles, they see an avatar of you with a nice generated background. Drawback, for those who wear eyeglasses, Vision Pro is compatible with custom magnetic optical inserts made by Zeiss. So that's saying to me that it's going to be, another $300, $400 on top if you got eyeglasses. There was an aside that I saw where one of the people this is in an actual workshop, where they were talking about how they're working on where it will, this is not something that they say they can do, but something they're trying to do, where the Vision Pro will actually look and determine what your eyesight is and adjust its display to your eyesight automatically. Which means that then the Vision Pro would be more of a universal device. In other words, I can buy one, have it on, use it. I can hand it to my wife, it readjusts to her, and it works for her. So anyway, The launch is sometime in 2024. In other words, it's not something you're going to see available this year. They're not saying when in 2024, but they wanted to get it out there. So again, it's something, I'm getting the same feeling the first time I saw an iPhone. I'm getting the feeling the first time I saw an iPad. I'm getting the feeling the first time I saw the iWatch or the iPod, iPod and Zoom. I looked at an iPod, I looked at a Microsoft Zoom, and I went, iPod. Okay. Yeah, it's the size of a pack of cigarettes and it's chunky, but wow, it's a lot easy to use, and then you can put a lot of music on it, put more music on than the Zoom. So, early days, I would say, on this. So we'll see where this goes. But I'll tell you, I would not be buying stock in a company that's making large screen home theater setups. Yeah.
But I can see the psychological problems with that too. It can overwhelm people. They have it, especially all the time, and they consider that their reality. I mean, I've heard that from my science professors at Wright State.
See, I'm like projecting 20 years down the line where something like this, instead of it being that big and bulky, it looks like a regular pair of glasses. And I've got, who knows what I'm actually looking at as I'm walking down the street. I predict that pedestrian accidents will go up exponentially when they do this until they get the self-driving cars out there that, Yeah. So, what do you think?
So this has,
Part of the big change is gonna come between now and their launch date, with whatever the developers come up with.
Oh, I wanted to make sure that I did say that while Microsoft and Zoom apps already work on this, they're already optimized, before launch, all of the literally hundreds of thousands of iPad and Mac apps will run on Vision OS.
Right.
Okay, so I want to make sure I got that out there. So think of this thing as being a computer you're wearing, and you can be doing spreadsheets, you can be doing surfing the web, you can be watching Netflix, you can be, all in one unit. I don't know.
I'm just thinking of the developers here. Now that they've got all the 3D capabilities and everything they put into all their applications,
Yeah.
you're gonna see applications that are gonna blow you away after they're ready to actually launch this.
Yeah.
At least I'll be really surprised if it's
But the one thing that I don't see is the communal sitting down with your significant other watching a movie. You each got your own. Well, they already have it in FaceTime where you can be watching the same movie in FaceTime. I bet you could do that with you each got your goggles on. And you're watching Bogey and Bacall.
Maybe it's safe to say this is right now targeted toward professional use.
Yeah.
For professional applications, commercial applications.
Well, again, Boston Dynamics, where you've got your robot dogs that are walking through construction sites, they're walking through refineries, taking measurements, etc. Holding an iPad and a controller at the same time, that's clunky. But if you're seeing and controlling with your hands and your fingers and your eyes and your voice, and I got to thinking, it really is sort of artificial to be controlling a computer using a keyboard. I'm controlling it with my fingers. Why have the keyboard if I don't need it? It just, anyway, but it's early days, but I think it's exciting. Yeah, George.
I'm having trouble getting my head around the differences and the similarities between Google Glass and this. This has cameras, so you see what's going on outside, and it can do facial recognition.
Oh, and it can take pictures. It can also take pictures.
Wasn't part of the problem with Google Glass the privacy issue of invading people's
And it's just, that doesn't go away. The Google Glass being the glasses, the reality was passing through just by nature of coming through the glass, right? Because they were glasses and they were superimposed.
Right.
This one has to be an active bringing into the outside world with cameras and projecting them to you, and that's why they have a little crown that can control that. You raised a good point, though, and that is that even in their little video, they showed a guy at his kid's birthday party wearing them, and he's filming the kid receiving the cake. But that could be him walking down the street, that could be him at a business meeting, that could be him behind someone at McDonald's that he finds worth capturing.
Particularly as they miniaturize it and it's less conspicuous.
I mean, it's in the camera. Now, obviously, if somebody's wearing this, they're not exactly inconspicuous, but you don't know if these become ubiquitous, and let's say 5 or 10% of people at any time at Kroger are wearing them or whatever, you're going to have to start to wonder when you see someone, hey, are they recording this?
Well, think it more in the workplace. So you're in the workplace and you have the manager from hell, all right? And they're hitting on you.
Right.
And you're wearing this, recording the whole thing
Yeah,
in
nobody's gonna do that
3D
anymore.
dimension. And, you know, here you go, HR.
You might end up with something similar to what's happening in Europe, where if you want to go to the Eiffel Tower, you want to take a picture, as long as it's not at night, because that's proprietary, you're not allowed to take pictures of the Eiffel Tower now at night unless you have a license, because their light display is proprietary.
Well, it's because it's not a panorama.
Right. So, but what happens is if you take a picture of your family standing there in front of the Eiffel Tower, and you incidentally get images of anybody else, strangers in the picture, by law, you have to go and get their written permission from each person to keep that photo for your own personal use. So you may end up with something, if this becomes ubiquitous, you may end up with something where the laws change, where if you're walking down the road, you have to have something that indicates you're recording, just like the phones now become. So if you take a picture, they have to make a sound.
Probably within a year or so, it'll be embedded within your phone, that you have Firefly automatically picking out anybody who's abandoned.
Well, what could happen over time eventually is culturally people just give up and go, these things are running all the time, everybody can see everything, and you sort of, there's a new ubiquity, which is everybody can see everything all the time.
It'd be like living in an English village.
Yeah, exactly. It's like living everywhere's a small town.
Like the Prisoner TV show.
Yeah, everywhere's a small town.
Yes.
If a person is in a public domain, you have the right to photograph them. You don't need their
You do
permission.
today.
What?
In France and in other countries spreading in Europe, you don't have that right.
Well, in the US, you still do.
You still do, I just.
But it has to do with specific buildings, because
Yeah.
buildings are considered to be works of art in the Eurozone.
Right.
And works of art are copyright, they have copyright protection.
Yeah.
So,
But for him to say you can't, you have to get people's permission in the public domain, you do not.
Well, he specifically did say France.
well,
He explicitly did
it's
say
true
France.
right now in North America, but I would remind you about the legislation that was put forth in New York and in California, where it would not be legal for you to video public officials.
Yeah, right.
Which is preposterous.
Yeah.
Everybody should be videoed.
I'll speak up on behalf
By the very name, public.
the ask of three-dimensional people. You know, I work in a three-dimensional realm, and I could care less about the display characteristics of this thing. What I was intrigued was with the sensors, and when it does take a photo, it's not taking a standard two-dimensional photo. It's taking a three-dimensional scan. So you could theoretically scan a space by walking through it and then play that back to another human being, and you could experience in 3 dimensions the space that you just walked through. And that, to me, is really what's exciting about this. And they play up the fact that, yeah, you can do all the iPhone and iPad apps. That's just, to me, icing on the cake.
Yeah.
And if you didn't listen to all the workshops that are going on, you're only getting what they broadcast. What you see in the workshops that have been going on are things like changes to USD, which is Universal Scene Descriptors, and all of the XROS changes that Apple is making to accommodate future things that will enable people to describe an environment, whether it's virtual or actual, and display it on this device. So to me, that is almost another step into a different realm rather than 2 dimensions, but just 3 dimensions.
So you're using an interactive program to create a building. With this, you'll then be able to walk through that model and experience that space.
They have that now, but I'm saying you could do this for a building that's already constructed.
Yeah.
And you could scan it with the sensors on this device. And depending on how much memory it's capable of, which they didn't talk about.
One of the workshops that they were going to, I got the feeling it was more of a spitball session than anything, but it was additive manufacture. So that's 3D printing, and how this could be used to get those 3-dimensional scans in real time. So, I could, I'm just projecting here, but you've got a military tech who's in the field, they got a broken part, he's doing a look at it with the Vision Pro, and then that creates a 3D model that they can then 3D print and put the part out in the battlefield.
It's not like this thing just fell out of the sky either. There's been devices, parts of iPad stuff, the LiDAR sensor, the spatial audio that are in Apple AirPod Pros.
Yeah.
All of these little components that they've been developing and now have come into this aggregation called Vision OS.
Vision Pro.
So this is something they've been working on and developing incrementally.
But isn't it very Apple-like? They tend to be an additive company. They push a technology and then they incorporate it in something else. And then you go, oh, well, of course, why wouldn't you have that?
But I saw that they were partnering with Unity rather than Unreal.
Yeah.
So that disappointed me in the fact that Unity, they must have, when they're falling out with Unreal and everything else, there must have been a little bit of a tit for tat or whatever. So now Unity is sort of partnering with Apple on their gaming engine, working on this. And there'll be things that will come out that will just knock your socks off.
In the Mac OS Sonoma announcement, they had this whole developer tool that's available, and regular people could use it too, where it'll take a PC game or a console game or a Steam game, and it will transmogrify it so you can try it on an Apple device. And then if it looks like the transformation process is pretty good, it will then rewrite code for Apple Silicon. So the one major drawback of Apple, for as long as I can remember, is their games are, and this is gonna, I think, change that dramatically.
I was going to say that the one underappreciated thing about this is the high-resolution displays and how they interact with text. You can get a headset heretofore like a Quest from Meta, and the text is passable, but you would not want to author anything in it. The reviewers, the influencers who've got it have said that the text is as good as any other Retina text. Well, they often quote the 2-hour battery life, but you don't hear quoted a lot that is on battery. You can put it on AC and run it forever, just like any other iOS device. So you could have a worker, and all they're doing is traditional work, right? And instead of giving them a kind of crappy monitor that's a 1080p monitor, whatever, you now have 4K equivalent displays, and you have them in every direction, everywhere around, and you can park them and move them and do them and shake them. And the text, if the reviewers say is true, is as good as a 4K monitor. That in Word, you're using Pro or whatever, but now you're doing it in a way that lets everybody have multiple different 4K monitors, 6K monitors, whatever, equivalent floating around them. And another thing that you can't do, most people with a monitor, is park stuff behind your head. But he mentioned it being 360, but you
above
can,
your
right,
head.
you can take a window and just park it back here and then just do a 180 to look at it and then move back forward. So that's just traditional desktop work.
So
So I
if
think
I
that's
was a
interesting.
manufacturer of large, high-resolution monitors for workplaces, I'd be going, maybe we got a problem here in the future.
How do you keep it?
The
Again,
sensor points
there's
down.
all this stuff that
Or you can
until
use a
you
regular keyboard
actually
with
get to
Bluetooth.
try one you don't know, that you control it with your hands, you control it with your eyes, you control it with your voice. So I'm thinking for text entry, you're talking to it. Yeah, Bill.
Remember the keyboard that was projected on the table?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can
Right.
do that.
You know, all of you have been talking about the aspects of using it in the business sense, but it's also exciting to me just to be, you know, it's like going from a purse to you know, something I can put in my wallet, which all of you men do. I mean, it's like freeing me up, whether it's reading a recipe where, you know, if I have the computer and it goes dark and I have to pump it up again just to keep the recipe where I can watch it. You know, if I have to look up, if I'm putting together a shelf and I need the directions, you know, they're going to be right there for me. So I'm saying, of course, you're going to have legitimate benefits in the workplace, but I really see this as a personal computer that
Until
I
they
can
get the
carry
price
around
down.
and still have my hands free.
That $3,500, you know.
It's going to
And
change.
the weight.
Bill,
Yeah.
Yep.
in 1984, the original Mac was about $2,500.
Yeah,
In today's, that's $7,000.
and we bought them.
Yeah.
Well, also remember, they've classified this as the Pro model.
Yeah.
That means that there's not gonna be a non-Pro
Ooh.
at some point.
I didn't think about that.
Oh, okay, a simpler version for home
Yeah.
use.
Yeah.
Or this essentially gets, in a year, what will probably happen is this will get basically a light dusting over and be called the Vision in a year.
Vision,
And the
right.
next improved one is the Vision Pro. And then Apple loves to amortize. So what they've
Yes.
done is all the tooling, all the parts, whatever, they've already paid off all that, and so then the cost drops. This is the, you know, they sell the M1 Air right now as the entry-level Air. And that's just stuff that they have around.
And just to illustrate how sneaky they are, way back in the day, this is when Steve Jobs was still alive, they bought a German television manufacturer, and they got all the rights and the stuff. That same set of patents are what were used in Retina displays and are what, there's some patents that, from that company they bought back in 1997? Okay, that were used in the development of these screens that you're going to be looking at. So it's, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bill.
What other industry has been able to do what the computer industry has done, especially Apple? They keep the price points the same. My brother has an original Mac portable. I think it's 15 or 20 pounds. $6,500 that cost.
Yeah.
Now, you look at the latest MacBook Air, 15-inch, for $900, $1,000, whatever it is. You know, it's the only industry that does this. Look at the price of trucks. The truck I had, which is 20 years old, was $30,000. The same truck now is 60 to 70, and you can spend $100,000 on a pickup truck. It's crazy, but you know, especially Apple, they've always been able to keep these price points and keep cramming more
Look
stuff.
at what they did with the MacBook Air. They keep the M1 MacBook Air. They have the original M2 MacBook Air. They lowered the price, and then they have the 13-inch, and then they have the 15-inch, which is now at the price that the 13-inch was at. Okay, so, yeah, and that all started after Tim Cook came into the company. that idea of 3 levels. And it was a reaction to the beige box era, when you had Quadra this, Quadra that. There were so many different form factors and models that you had to have a special document just to keep track of what all the different things were that Apple had. And you simplify it, and you go with the good, better, best. That's how people shop. That's how people think.
Back when the first Macs came out with a little 9-inch black and white screen,
Yeah.
$3,500.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that is absolutely.
So the question is,
He won in
will the
1995,
consumer
they had to do
version be
24.95,
called
and then it was gone.
Vision Air?
Plus, it was the real
Well,
first Mac, because the first Mac.
I wanted to add on to what I was saying earlier. I'm sure there's not a person in here that, when they were a kid, did not use the old Viewmaster
Oh,
slides.
Yeah.
And there were literally thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of different slides that you could go to Brazil or Africa, or, you know, if you try to think of what this as another advance in the Viewmaster, only now you're seeing it in 3-dimensional, true 3-dimensional.
And you might be using this device to record the stuff that you later sell.
Yeah.
So you're walking through a 3-dimensional marketplace.
I doubt if it's gonna, you know, the LiDAR scanners do have a distance restriction, so it's gonna be, there's gonna be something intermediate that's gonna have to happen
Yeah.
between, you know, but just think of it as a Viewmaster.
So the purpose of today's presentation was to let you know what they announced in the form of reality, which was hardware, to give you a glimpse for what's coming in the way of software that once it's reality will go into unbelievable, nauseating detail on it. And to give you a glimpse of this thing, because this was the most quixotic one for me. I still haven't quite figured out what it is, how you would use it. Is it going to be the biggest flop? Is it going to be like an Apple III? You know, the computer that almost killed Apple? Or is it going to be...
It's the next step before being plugged directly into the computer. You know, you don't even have to have the goggles,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, Neuralink.
Think of the other aspects they can use with this, like with ground penetrating radar. You can just walk around and look down there if you're looking for mines in the battlefield, or, you know, stuff like that. You can actually just walk around and see this stuff.
Because
instead of having
again,
to drag
it's not a virtual reality, it's an augmented reality.
Yes.
You're looking at reality, and then it's adding value to it so that you don't step where you shouldn't step.
Yeah. And think of the, you know, astronomy aspects and things like that. You know.
One of the other ones was a workshop that was a medical workshop, and I think it was for like surgical techniques. And I'm wondering with this, because of the sensors, you can be seeing stuff in other wavelengths of light. And, you know, one of the things that surgeons will do now, especially cancer surgeons, is they'll give particular chemicals to a patient before surgery because they biofluoresce. Cancer cells will biofluoresce. And so you're doing your surgery in a darkened room and you're going for the stuff that's glowing.
Well, you know, and augmenting this was robotic surgery.
Yeah.
Instead of having to go through this great big thing, you can wear these goggles.
I didn't think about that.
It'll probably be a couple of years though before you can get it implanted behind your ear for about $50.
Elon is taking applications now. He got okay from the Federal Drug Administration, no, National Institute of Health, to start doing the electrode embedding.
Well, they're doing that with hearing.
Yes, all the way in the back.
I'm curious to find out how it's going to affect the eyes, optical nerve. Because, you know, with all the other iPads, computers, televisions, and everything, we talk about how you look, eyes open to affect your eyesight. What's this going to do with your eyesight?
And I don't know.
Blue light and stuff like
it's continuously bombarding your eyes with infrared light. That's how it tracks. It tracks your eyes using an infrared mapping similar to Face ID. So it is literally constantly shining lights into your eyes that you can't see. So that is something that I was worried about, is I don't know. We don't have a precedent for something half inch from your eye bombarding you with infrared light literally for hours a day. We just have no precedent for that.
And it's not just one nerve. There's 5 nerves in the brain that go just for the eyes, for movement, everything else. It's 5 cranial nerves.
So
Take
again,
care of
you
the
know,
eyes.
another big question mark. So it'll be interesting how they do it. See, yeah, you want to take us out?
Yeah, thank you very
At
much
the end?
for very thought-provoking.
You can cap it.
I want to ask you, in the future, how would a novice like me be aware of these things? Was this a live streamed conference? Or?
If you go to the Apple website, okay, and you click on the Vision Pro, they've got a little movie that,
I mean, the whole
Every-
conference.
WWDC
the whole
every year.
keynote is available.
Apple has a PR link, but WWDC is the magic word. Every
Yeah.
June until Apple dies, you're going to get this,
Yeah.
whenever that is.
Let me bring it up in a web browser. So I'm launching Safari.
And you talked about side meetings and conferences, individual
That's
groups?
because I'm an Apple developer.
Okay.
And
They
so
have
I've
breakout
got
rooms at the conference.
agenda.
This is just the keynote. The conference is the tip of an iceberg. The conference is breakouts and sessions. And actually, as a developer myself, I love to go to the developer sessions and see their little things.
Right.
But this is just the keynote, tip of the iceberg. They have an in-person thing where people are actually doing workshops and stuff.
People that write code, people that work for other companies that use their stuff, they're out there right now, and well, either in person or zooming in these workshops where they're going in detail. Oh, how do you do this with this? How do you? You got a great new idea for an app. Oh, do you know about our new device? Do you think how you might be able to use that? So that's what the Worldwide Developer Conference is about.
Is it over?
And literally 40% of the
it's over just now. I think it
attendees
started, but the
are from
sessions are
outside
available.
North America.
They have a great thing where they make available almost every session. So, and most of them are esoteria for developers, but there are some that are more general, like the State of the Platform Union and the keynote and stuff. I think our jig is up a little bit here.
The only drawback is, if you'll notice with the Vision Pro, the people that they have in the movie using it, they either have this sort of pom-pom hairdo, or they're completely shaved. So we're either going to have to go back. I'm not sure if mullets would be.
Mullets are reality.
Okay, I officially declare us adjourned. Thank you for coming out on a beautiful summer day. No meeting in July, no meeting in August.
Have a great summer.